Some of my thoughts on these two chapters, particularly, or starting with the first one, is um, one of the first things they talk about, which is how an administrator's philosophy is at the core of decision making. So each classroom, each teacher of each classroom is impacted by the administrator's philosophy, and to a certain extent, the administrator's philosophy rubs off on the philosophies of each of the teachers that he or she foresees. The main thing, or my main thoughts and things that I got out of the second chapter were the very specific different roles that were discussed in chapter two, and how they had different levels of responsibility. For example, the director of music and the supervisor of music both had the authority to implement decisions that affect other music staff. However, the music consultant was just an advisor. And the department chair was a third category that was responsible for administrating the music curriculum within the specific building as opposed to a school district. So it was really interesting for me to read about those different roles. I always just thought of them interchangeably. How do I see myself fitting into the ideas presented? One quotation from chapter one was that an administrator, a good music administrator, is not someone that's merely a manager, but someone that is involved in creative decision making. I think that this is the best way to come around to people under you. And right now, I am not in any kind of administrative role, but this is definitely the kind of persona that I would want to present to people that I was administering if I were an administrator. I would want to be rooted in traditions and for them to understand my philosophy, but also to be open to consideration of radical change. For example, if someone wanted to think about possibly including a program like Quaver into the music curriculum, that would be a significant investment. I would like, if I ever were an administrator, I would be open to listening to the reasons that that would be in the best interest of the kids. How do I see all of this applying in music education? There was another part of chapter one that talked about the various different music programs and how you really can't compare them because of the very unique circumstances. And each individual school or district has its own unique circumstances. And I think it's really good to be reminded of that because we're comparing apples and oranges. If we're comparing a rural school with that doesn't have any method books and where the teacher is having to do all the fundraising versus a suburban school where the teacher can hire people in for sectionals, you just can't compare the performances of those two and judge the band director, choir director, strings director on that because they're such different circumstances. Like I said, differences in funding, sectionals, the presence of sectionals, that's feasible for some programs and it isn't for others. In a lot of cases, the amount of time given to music teachers is different, and the grading policy is different a lot of times. In my case, I'm teaching a pass-fail class, which creates for a unique situation. And also just the expectations from the community are different in different programs, and certain programs have boosters and certain other programs don't. So it's really not fair to compare different people based on what program they're in because you're comparing apples and oranges because every situation is unique and good in its own way, I guess.